Hello, this is Abby.
Dear Abby, this is gonna be a long one.
Oh boy.
Dear Abbey, how do you tell the difference between a new exciting crush and a rebound?
Does it matter?
Dear Abby.
Dear Abbey.
Dear Abby.
Welcome to our little corner of the internet. This is the Dear Abby podcast. I hope you stay and hang out with us. See you in a sec. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dear Abby podcast. I'm your host. My name is Abby. Thank you for joining us today. So I had some difficulty recording this episode, as well as after all of that hard work, I finished recording and I just didn't feel like I was eloquent enough. Like I don't think I said everything that I wanted to say. So it was just kind of a brain vomit of an episode. So I scratched that episode and I'm redoing it, but don't worry, it's been a full 24 hours in between. I've had a complete refresh. And sometimes if I'm super tired, I can't say what I want to say in a way that makes sense. And so maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. I just want to give you guys the best quality of content that you deserve. And I want to be fully present and have it be a meaningful, good episode for you to enjoy. Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. So today we're going over a couple of different things. One, we're going to do some life updates because it's been a lot of wedding planning stuff. I got my dress, so I wanted to talk about that a little bit and that experience. And then we're going to do dubs and L's from this past week. And then we're going to jump into today's main topic, which I wanted to talk about. Number one, riding the wave of anxiety. This applies to OCD as well, but when I really just was struggling with anxiety and some of the more anxious sensation type stuff and panic disorder, I was never diagnosed with panic disorder. I just had a lot of panic attacks, so I shouldn't self-diagnose. I have never had panic disorder, but I've had panic attacks. So I want to talk about that a little bit. And then also I wanted to speak on something that's near and dear to my heart, which is when you don't feel safe to be alone because of your thoughts. Like you don't feel safe in your own head. You don't feel safe in your own body, mind, soul, all of that stuff. And what it's like to experience that and how hard that is. And I want to validate people's experiences, not reassure. And also B, talk about my experience with that and things that actually really helped me feel safe and comfortable with my own thoughts and with myself. So that's what we're doing today. And then we'll do a Dear Abby. And then that'll be it. So life updates. I bought my dress and I'm very, 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 very excited. So we went to Anthropologie to try on dresses. And I have saved I have seen probably 600 dresses on Pinterest, on Instagram. I have been looking and looking and looking and trying to figure out what vibe I want because I want it to match the decor. But also I'm like, if I find a dress that I'm obsessed with, I will match the decor with the dress. So I was really looking forward to it. I was excited all week. I tried to act cool about it. Like I didn't care. Like, oh yeah, we're going dress shopping. Yeah. But I was very excited deep down. It was fun because my sister, my mom, who was in town, was able to come. JC, who's Keaton's sister-in-law, and then also Keaton's sister, so my future sister-in-law, they were all able to come. So we meet up, we go to Anthropologie, and I went in there thinking that I liked a certain style of dress, but deep down knowing that when I tried it on, it wouldn't feel like me, and I was very correct about that. So we tried on a few dresses. I loved all of them. It's so fun, except for one. One of them was a miss, a complete miss. Not flattering. It was too thick. It was like just fitted so weird on my body. Took that one off immediately. But I basically just tried it on and it was like I would compare that dress with the dress before, and if it was better or worse, and if it was better, then I'd go on with that dress as my number one. And then it was kind of a elimination type of a dress situation. So of course everyone is like, ooh, that one's beautiful, to all of the dresses, which I'm like, okay, I'm trying to catch a vibe of what you guys are actually feeling, because that is going to be helpful for me to make a decision, is what other people see, because I want to feel beautiful, but also if I could find a dress that I like and everyone else likes, that's better for me. So, and I feel like as a girl, when you see someone else try on a dress, some dresses just fit them. And There's no words to describe it. It just looks like instead of the dress wearing them, it somehow fits into them, and they're wearing that dress. They're wearing their wedding dress. And it perfectly molds to their body. It molds to their personality. It just molds, and it just looks beautiful on them. It accentuates their bride self, is what the dress is supposed to do and supposed to feel like. So we get to the final 2 dresses that we've gone through that elimination process. One of them is like a big opera ball gown type dress, but beautiful, like laced, big skirt, big train, lots of fabric going on. Has cute little drop shoulder cuffs, and I don't think it was a sweetheart. It was just like a square top, like no shoulders. It was no sleeves. It was sleeveless. So it was that one, and then my actual dress that I got, which I'm not going to explain it to you, but I was back and forth in between these 2 dresses. And when I tried on the big dress, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like Todayyy in the Phantom of the Opera, her debut dress. That was kind of the vibe that I was feeling, which I love her. And I grew up thinking she was the most beautiful, talented person ever. And I also just love that vibe, like old opera masquerade is really cool to me, and would love to cosplay someday with that vibe. And this is why it's helpful to have people with you, because Chelsea called me out for it, and she was like, I feel like you like this dress more because you are trying to cosplay in this dress versus actually feeling like it's your bridal dress, like it's your wedding dress. And once she said that, I was like, okay, yeah, my decision's made. I'm going with the other one, because that was totally what was happening. Is I was just not even picturing me as a bride. I just was like, I'm obsessed with this dress. Like, I want to wear this to a castle, and I felt beautiful in it, but I felt like Todayyy, and I felt like I was cosplaying someone else versus like actually feeling like me in a dress. Also, when I tried on my actual dress that I bought, there was tears from almost everyone. I shed a few tears because I just felt like I settled into the dress when I got in it and felt beautiful. I'm so excited. I posted a bunch of dresses that I tried on, and I kept wanting to, I wanted to post my actual dress so badly, because once you find the dress, I've looked at pictures of me in that dress like 10 times a day, because it's just so beautiful and it's flattering, and I love the color. I love everything. I love the shade of it. I love everything about it. And I'm just so excited. That's the story of my wedding dress shopping. One more thing to add, because of course I usually talk about my mental health with these things. My OCD has been very much trying to attack wedding planning. Obviously getting married is a big thing, so my OCD is kind of going for that a little bit, like making me feel a little bit uneasy at some points, but I've been really good at just not engaging with those thoughts. And it was like, what if this isn't the dress? And it was interesting, because while I was trying on these dresses, and once I was like, I think I'm going to get this dress, my OCD was like, but what if this is the dress? This might not be the dress. Maybe you should go try on more and more and more until it feels better than that. And I don't know, it just started to, and it just tried to grab hold of all of these different things, which in the past would have shocked me, but I was able to just say, I think this is it. Like, I don't know how sure you can be about what your wedding dress is supposed to be. I love it. I feel beautiful. I feel like I'm a bride when I wear it. So I just thought it was interesting, because I've had a hard time letting myself have my feelings come to the surface recently. I don't know. I don't cry. I still cry, but in front of people, I don't cry as much. I don't know if it's a defense thing, but I just feel like if I feel tears coming on, I don't let it happen, which I don't actually love that. And I do want to be able to relax into the crying and relax into the feeling of that stuff with the positive. We had so much fun that day, so nothing could really spoil it, not even OCD. So suck on that. Side note, we used to always sing Phantom of the Opera, Think of Me specifically, and all the songs, but Think of Me was my favorite. And I would sing the girl part. My brother would sing Raoul's part, which is really just, bravo, long ago, it seems so long ago, how young and innocent we were. And I would sing Christine's part, obviously. The part that I always would try and still do, I was just singing this literally on my way home from work because I was thinking about the podcast and I was thinking, oh, I was going to talk about my dress, which made me think of Phantom of the Opera. And I was like, oh, wait, I want to sing that song. If you don't, fine. Okay, I'll sing a little bit. Think of... I'm going to have to put this down and hold it in my legs. I can't sing it loud because my next door neighbor, who's like connected with the wall to me, is there and I can hear him talking, and the walls are pretty thin, so he could probably hear me sing, and I'm a little bit embarrassed by that. But here we go. Don't think about the way things might have been. I can hear my neighbor. I want to die. Okay, we'll just skip to the last part. Stop and think. Ha, 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 ha. That's all I got. All right, I'm done with that. Sorry. All right, moving on. My bear says, stop doing that. Okay, moving on. So, dubs and L's this week. Dub, obviously I bought my dress. I've also been really good at exposure response prevention this week, and I've just said no thank you to a lot of ruminating and kind of getting back on my grind when it comes to holding myself super accountable for when I'm ruminating, when I'm wasting time on things that I can't, that's like not amounting to anything. Another thing that I've been thinking this week regards to recovery is I really value education and I really value learning, especially about psychology, especially about human behavior, history. All of that stuff is very fascinating to me, and I also think it's very beneficial to know and to learn and to study. I used to think that just because I'm studying something means that it's compulsive, or that I'm just doing it because my OCD makes me feel like I have to understand everything. And I do think that is part of it, where sometimes I would just become really, I would be anxiously trying to learn everything to prevent something. But one of my values is education and learning and growing and expanding my mind, my heart, and all of that's my soul. And I've been thinking about going back to school, even though I don't have the funds yet, but one day I want to go back to school and become a psychologist or something in that field, which takes a long time, and I understand that. So who knows what will come of that. But I think I'm just remembering how much I do love studying and learning about different things. And I used to let kind of OCD recovery, I kind of let OCD get in the way of that because I thought everything was compulsive for a while, and so I wouldn't like learn. But learning isn't compulsive behavior. It's a huge value that I have, and so I've been leaning more into that and not being like, am I compulsing? Is this not a compulsion? It's like, I don't think it is because I want to do it. So yeah, I've talked to my therapist about this, about like the meta OCD, where it starts to attack OCD. And like if you have it or not, if you still have it, how bad you have it, what if everything, and I don't know. We can get into that another day. And then my L for this week is I think I'm going to have to start lifting weights again, like weight training and heavy lifting, because that changes my body composition more than anything, and actually changes like my body structure. And I feel the most confident in my body in terms of I feel like tighter, and I feel not like bad tight. I just feel more toned, and I also feel like my insides are doing better when I do weightlifting with HIIT workouts and then walks. Like I don't know. I've unfortunately, and that's a negative because I don't love lifting weights. But I think because my wedding is like 4 months away now, I'm really on the grind of I want to feel really confident in my dress. And on that day, I want to feel good. I want my insides to feel good. So I'm going to take supplements to help with my SIBO and all of these different things. And so I guess it's not an L, but it kind of is. I'm learning that I do need to like lift weights and lift heavy weights. Maybe this is for everyone in order to actually see a difference and actually feel a difference. And like I need my back to get stronger. But I also love calisthenics. So I'm not quitting calisthenics. I think I'm just mixing that in with weightlifting. Okay, so we're going to start by talking about when you don't feel safe by yourself because of your thoughts or your feelings, and when it's just you compulsively try to be with everybody else but yourself. When I was doing really bad, when I was first in chronic OCD, I did not want to be alone. I wanted to be either with my ex-husband. I had to be with somebody else. I had to be watching TV. If I was alone, I love BTS. I'd have BTS run episodes because it was like people talking in the background. And not that it's bad to watch those videos or any videos of like vlogs like that. I like that stuff now, but I would have to have it on all the time and I couldn't sit by myself with my own thoughts. I had a lot of existential, like I was hyper aware of being aware. I was hyper aware of how my brain was working. I was hyper aware of my thoughts, of my feelings. I had intrusive thoughts, religious, harm, sexual, all of these things. And this was my first experience with chronic OCD because I've had it my whole life, but it never got that sticky where it was 24/7, obsessing, compulsing. It was so scary for me. I did not know what was happening. Anyways, and if I wasn't watching TV or with my ex-husband, I would drive to my parents' house because I didn't live that far, and I would be with them and I'd hang out with them. And yeah, I just really did not want to be alone and couldn't sit with myself. And that behavior, when you are suffering with this, that behavior of needing to be with someone else, needing something on all the time, needing to be with your partner, with your parents, with someone, doing those behaviors, then reiterated to my brain that you aren't safe with yourself, that you shouldn't be by yourself because you might hurt yourself, you might hurt someone else, you might go crazy. And the fear was when I would be by myself would be that I'm going to hurt myself. That was like suicidal ideation. That was a big one. That I'd go crazy, that I'd become evil or bad, and a couple other types of things. But I was mostly scared that I would act on my thoughts. I was scared of what those thoughts meant. And when I was by myself, it was scarier to me for some reason. I know for some other people, it can be when you're with other people. And that switched around a couple of times back and forth. But for the sake of this episode, I'm just talking about when you don't feel safe being by yourself. So this was very scary. And this was very hard because it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So me and my therapist, eventually, after I found therapy and found out it was OCD and all that stuff, we focused on getting my alone time back because I am introverted and I like being alone a lot, and I find a lot of joy in the peace and the quiet, but I couldn't enjoy my time alone anymore. And so I was always with people, which then exhausted me. But then if I went by myself, then I just wanted to sleep. I didn't want to be conscious pretty much. But I think through that whole experience, I actually came out with so much love, understanding, and empowerment because of everything I went through to fight to be alone again and to fight to be okay with myself and to enjoy spending time alone and by myself and with my own thoughts. That came with a lot of therapy and a lot of work towards that. I just want to say, if you are someone that struggles with that or you've struggled with that, it's so hard and it's so scary. And unless you've experienced that type of mental torture, you will never understand. So I just want to validate that it's an incredibly hard experience, and you are so strong for getting out of that. And as cheesy as that sounds, and as much as we don't like to take any credit sometimes, You've probably worked your butt off to get to the point where you are today, and it's okay to celebrate that and to take a second and be proud of yourself, because it takes leaps of faith, it takes leaps of hope and believing in something and just grit and hard work. If you're struggling with this still, I wanted to share some things from not a professional. I'm not a professional. I wanted to share some things that helped me get to a place where I can enjoy being by myself again and feel safe with my own thoughts. There's a lot of things that I'll probably forget because it's been a long journey, but I'm going to recall just a couple of things that I think were the most helpful for me, the best that I can recall. So the first thing was I would do this in small steps. So you never have to go from 0 to 100 where you are never alone because you're too scared. You're chronically scared of your thoughts and what they mean and all that stuff. And so you're not just going to go from like agoraphobia or something around that type of fear of just leaving your house or your room to you're going to the grocery store, totally fine. You're going out, you're going to the beach, you're doing all of these different things all in one day. That's going to take a long time. Sometimes it happens quick. Sometimes it happens really slow. Everyone's so different. So don't compare your recovery to other people. And what helps you is what helps you. It might not help the next person. But I think going very slow, I would tell myself, okay, I'm going to be so uncomfortable doing this. And I can barely muster up getting out of bed. And I can barely muster up looking at myself in the mirror or being alone with myself because it felt so scary in my brain. It was just reiterated over and over again through behaviors that you shouldn't be by yourself. This is bad. You're going to do something bad. So it was so scary. But I would tell myself, okay, today I'm just going to go on a walk, maybe for like 10 minutes, and I'm going to be back. And then I'm going to have the same day as I've had the past couple of months. That's all I'm going to do. No matter how I feel, I just have to do it. I started with that, and then slowly, over weeks and weeks and months, it was longer and longer. I could go on a walk. I could go to the gym. So I did that where I slowly just spent more time alone. So you don't have to be quick and you have to be very patient with yourself, but you do have to hold yourself very accountable because no one can save you. You have to face yourself. That is the only way out, or you will just keep living this life of relying on everybody else, of not feeling empowered, feeling like a victim. All of these things will just keep reiterating, and it's just not a fun way to live. So I had to hold myself very accountable and give myself tough love. And then something else that helped was to tell myself, okay, this is really important, but I'm gonna ruminate about this in 20 minutes. At 3 o'clock, I'm going to ruminate about this. Until then, I'm going to focus on A, B, and C. And I would do that with themes that I was ruminating about or obsessing about. And that's also a great technique that I'm sure you've heard a million times, is to try to space out when you do compulsions. Something else that really helped, I think this is what I talk about, self-compassion a lot, but specifically a way you can practice this, because that's like self-compassion. Just love yourself. It's like, how do you do that? Something that I practice within self-compassion is showing my brain and showing myself that I deserve to recover or that I deserve to be happy. Even if you feel like you don't love yourself, or if you feel as though you don't deserve to be happy because of the content of your thoughts, or if you don't feel like you love yourself, or you don't feel like you care about your future, if you have a little bit of, if you are depressed or if you have depressive thoughts. But if you have that, you are still capable of doing the things that you think will bring you joy and that you believe will bring you to a better place mentally. So I said this a little bit at the beginning, but I do feel like this experience specifically of not wanting to be alone and fighting for that again has been so life-changing for me, because I feel like no matter what now, I'm going to be okay, because I can handle so much more than I ever thought I could. And the same applies to you. I don't think we understand how capable we are of the hard things in our life. And the reason why I really don't like victim mentality and that thing is because I had that for so long, and it was just holding me back. As cliche and as silly as that sounds, when people talk about that, I really do feel like pushing through and fighting for even just some peace of mind gave me so much confidence, because I remember where I was and where I'm at now, and I did the work for that. And I was supported in certain ways, but just as I said, no one can save you. No one can do that work for you. Like, you have to do it. So when you do actually do it, you feel so proud of yourself. You feel confident and you feel on top of the world, and not in an egotistical way. It's really just like, oh, I can handle the hard things in life. Like, I can rise above it. You always can rise above it. Something that is kind of difficult to elaborate on is like my experience with meditation and what role that played, because if I'm being honest, I don't know exactly how helpful meditation was specifically for this, because sometimes it would make me worse because it was kind of like checking. It was like every time I meditated, I just checked to see, okay, is this making me feel better? And so I think meditation can be very compulsive because of why you're doing it and also what you're doing when you're doing it. There's a lot of checking that happens when you're meditating. So I would advise with meditation that if you do it, that you're just aware of if you are doing compulsive behaviors, and to just reflect on that maybe and see if it's actually helping you, and talk with, if you have a therapist or I don't know, someone who knows about OCD. But the practice of just being still and being present was really helpful for me, because it did make me face really big feelings and really, horrific thoughts. And it made me face them. And instead of running around in my mind and running away in my mind, it just made me face it. And on top of that, I think the most helpful thing for me, honestly, was just to face it. I don't know how else to explain it, but to really face my fears and to really face myself and be so honest with myself as to where I'm at, and be so honest with how I'm feeling, with what, with the reality of life, I guess. Sometimes we can live in la la land with OCD and it feels safer, but that's like very much an illusion. And that's a big part of OCD, is you get stuck in this not real, very much an illusion type state of mind. It's not healthy. Like, I hate to break it to us, because it feels safer, but it's not healthy. And it's not a realistic look at life. And so it's hard to face the reality of life, and it's hard to face that humans are bad and humans can be good. And it's kind of chaos, but also not chaos sometimes. And to face like those existential things for me was really helpful, and face everything within myself, the good and the bad. It's like the same concept of, you can move around the world, you can do whatever, you can change so many things in your circumstance, and you can change so many things in your external world, and it might feel so much better for a while, maybe for a long time. But eventually you are going to have to face that same thing, and you're going to have to face yourself. And so for me, I had to face that reality within myself. Like, I have to be so honest with myself. Something that scared me was that I couldn't run away from myself. And that's really dramatic sounding, but that's really what I wanted to do, and what I have been doing for a long time, was running away from certain feelings and running away from myself. And within recovery, I really had to not do that anymore. To be super specific, I just had to be honest about things that I was doing to make my life worse. I had to be honest about things that I was doing that were self-sabotaging. I had to be super honest with myself of that I could be a bad person. I could do bad things. Not that I wanted to do those bad things, but who knows what you're capable of, what you're not capable of. And that's really scary. My brain doesn't like to accept that. But for me, at least personally, that was kind of how I found freedom. All of this sounds really scary, and it was, and it sometimes still feels scary for me, but it's not as scary as you probably think or feel, to face yourself and to face these things, because, again, to reiterate, you are capable of it, and it just might feel different, but you're capable of the change. Okay, I'd mentioned that I also want to talk about panic and riding the wave. And I just wanted to touch on this because I've kind of felt a little panicky recently. I think I've just been feeling overwhelmed, but also randomly at work the other day, I just felt that surge of like adrenaline and like alarm bells going off in my body and in my head. And I started to kind of detach a little bit. And when I was younger, this would happen and it would turn into a full-blown panic attack. Hyperventilating, sobbing, feeling like the world is spinning, feeling like I'm detached from my body. I felt like I was floating, like I felt very numb, tingly, all the things. But the past couple of years, I've really, really practiced riding that wave so it doesn't get worse. But even if it does get worse, that was a huge part of it, was accepting maybe I have a full-blown panic attack right now, but I can handle it. And so bring it. Come on, that's all you got? That's all the palpitations you got in there? Huh? You can't give me any more, huh? That's kind of the attitude I have with it now. But I was at work and I felt that like surge. And for a second, it was like, oh my gosh, wait, what's happening? Am I going to have a panic attack or what is happening? And then I recognized that quick second that you have of like being aware enough to like think logically. I told myself to ride the wave. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to ride the wave. I just didn't engage with it. I didn't try to control where the wave was going. I just sat with it and it was really uncomfortable and I felt dizzy. I felt kind of off balance. The adrenaline was there and I felt like my brain was telling me I had to do something. I just didn't listen to it and I didn't take it as like fact. And so it was uncomfortable probably for 20 minutes, but then it subsided eventually. I still felt a little bit weird, but it just reminded me that riding the wave of those sensations or thoughts or that panicky feeling was so helpful. And it is so helpful because I'd always be scared. The fear is if that rising anxious feeling got worse and worse and worse, and if it got to the very peak, what would happen if I didn't stop it before it got to its peak anxiety? Would I go crazy? Would I lose my mind? Would I snap and hurt someone? Would I lose everything that I loved? Would I just have no more values as a person? I would just go downhill. Those were like the weird fears that I had with that rising feeling. Like what's at the end of this feeling? And that would scare me so bad. So I would always suppress it, or I'd pinch myself, or I'd shake my head, or I'd dig my nails into my palm to like stop the energy or something. And instead, I know this probably sounds weird if you can't relate to this, so bear with me. When I learned that I could let that feeling, that anxious feeling, get to its peak without engaging, without trying to suppress it, whatever, I realized the first couple of times when it did that, it was really scary and I was so scared that something was going to happen. But then once it got to its peak, it just like slowly came down. And that was it. And I was like, oh, so that's what I've been suppressing my whole life. And so now when I have those rushes, I just ride the wave. It gets to its peak and then it starts to fall back down. And it feels really weird to do that at first. It does not feel safe. It does not feel normal, but it is really helpful. And so I think I just wanted to touch base on that because it kind of reminded me of how much I use that. I still use it in different ways, but it's not the same feeling as that specific panic or anxiety attack type feeling. Okay, let's do a Dear Abbey.
Dear Abbey, first of all, I love the podcast. This has seriously helped me so much. I recently discovered you and I'm so grateful. I'm currently going through a breakup and I feel like it was largely due to some of my reactions because of my OCD. And I'm sort of just looking for your general advice on overcoming the shame that might follow the feeling, these sort of reactions and things that happen because of OCD thoughts and compulsions. Just because I'm sort of in this position now where I feel like if I hadn't reacted this way, we would still be together and it's all my fault. And I know that's not the case, but I would love to hear, your advice. Thank you.
A couple things come to mind right off the bat. First, I totally understand maybe if I acted this way, we still would have been together, our relationship would be good, and we would still be thriving and whatever. And you start to kind of put on yourself the what ifs. What if I did this better? What if I had done this better? And I think that's extremely normal and very common. If not every single time anyone breaks up with anyone, that's very common. That's kind of the thing that you do because you're trying to process the breakup and you're trying to process, okay, what happened there? What did I like? What did I not like? So I do think there's value in reflecting on the relationship, However, obviously, which you've said this, it's not true that it's like all your fault, that if you had done everything differently, then it would have been perfect. And that black and white thinking of it's all your fault, it's all his fault is never the truth. So it's not helpful to think like that specifically. So if you find yourself going down that rabbit hole, I'd be like, okay, let's reel it back in. Let's be realistic with the situation. I think there's a healthy way to reflect back on the relationship and figure out what you liked and didn't like from him, or if there were needs that weren't being met that, you know, you held resentment towards him for, but you didn't voice it. I don't know, just stuff like that. Anyways, regarding the shame that comes after maybe you have reacted poorly, because it sounds like you do regret some of the ways that you reacted due to your OCD. And as someone who has it, it is really hard to navigate relationships with OCD. Always give yourself slack and forgive yourself, because it's not an easy thing to have this disorder. And it's so hard to change when you've had it for so long. And so give yourself some time, some patience and grace for when you did react poorly and when you did probably hurt the relationship, because we all do that. We all eventually do that at some point. Definitely take it as a learning opportunity and use the shame as a learning opportunity, but don't let the shame be like the bearer of all truth. Like, I am a shameful person. It's like, I feel a little bit embarrassed and ashamed that I reacted this way because I don't want to do that moving forward. And if you do it again, then you forgive yourself and you try again. But breakups are hard anyways, so I wouldn't, if this was a recent breakup, I wouldn't just spend all the time only reflecting and only being like, okay, I'm going to work on myself immediately, and that's all my attention is going to go into how I can fix myself and all these things, because that's very overwhelming and sometimes you just need, especially after breakups, to take things slow and to not even do anything like that yet, to reflect, to write, to cry, to feel, to, I don't know, lean on somebody, lean on people. And then after you feel more, okay, I feel like I've processed that emotionally and physically. Now let me do it intellectually and emotionally in a different sense and mentally. But everyone's different after breakups. I'm a cry for a couple of weeks in my room. That's my priority, is to feel everything. And then after that, I get a surge of, okay, I'm back in this whole life thing. And then that works for me. So whatever works for you. But definitely forgive yourself for reacting poorly. Relationships are extremely complicated and complex. It wasn't all your fault, because in no relationship but is it only one person's fault. It's also a good opportunity to think down the road, again, after you've processed, to think about if there are ways that you didn't receive the love they were trying to give, or if you kind of pushed away the connection or self-sabotaged, or it could have just been that they were not good for you in the sense of they didn't care enough and they didn't try enough to make it work. And so it was always like doomed to fail. Because if the other 50% isn't doing nothing, then it doesn't matter what you do. It's like all of your imperfections will be with the magnifying glass, because you'll feel like, okay, well, I wasn't perfect and then they left, so I have to be perfect for them, my next person, which isn't true. So last thing is, don't fall into that trap of thinking that just because somebody left or because a relationship ended and you made mistakes, that does not mean that it was all on you, and that your next relationship will only work if you are perfect, because that's exhausting and that's not possible either. You will find someone, if you want a relationship, that will work as hard as you will, even though they're imperfect. Hopefully one of those couple of things are helpful for you. But that's it for today's episode, you guys. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to support the podcast, you can leave a rating or review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as on YouTube. You can like, subscribe, comment. You can share my podcast on your Instagram stories. That's always really helpful, or just word of mouth. I would really appreciate the support. And blah, blah, blah. Love you guys. Bye.